Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
Hello, I'm delighted to be joined today by Kim-Marie Freeston, who's the founder and managing director of UComply. Kim-Marie is a thought leader in employers' compliance and in particular home office requirements for the employee right to work. She's formerly CEO of Lifeline Recruitment Solutions and has over 20 years experience in the recruitment industry, which also included 6 years as a board member of the REC, which is the Recruitment and Employment Confederation. Spotting a compliance gap in the market for ID checks to meet home office requirements, Kim-Marie founded UComply back in 2012 and together with a team of technology experts created the first software solution to manage ID checks and employee compliance requirements. So as a client, Blackmores supported UComply a couple of years ago to achieve certification to the quality standard ISO 9001 and the information security standard ISO 27001. So I'm absolutely delighted that Kim-Marie can join us today to share her experience with other businesses about her certification journey. Kim-Marie, hi.
Hi there, Mel.
Great. Thanks very much for joining us. Before we begin, could you tell us a little bit about something that not many people know about you?
There's probably a few things, but probably the most unusual thing is I've got a tortoise I've had since I was 4 years old.
Wow. Does he have a name?
I know.
Or she?
He's pretty ancient now.
Yeah. Have they got a name?
His name's Rags. He did have a sibling called Tags, because we had Rags, Tags and Bobtail when we were children. Unfortunately, Tags didn't survive, but Rags has been going for 50 odd years.
Great. Excellent. Good old Rags. I know I had one when I was little and it kept on running off. So in the end, my dad painted a white cross on it. So if it did wander over into a neighbour's garden, it would get sent back home. So how do you manage to keep tabs on Tags then?
He actually, he lives indoors in a terrarium when it's cold, and he's an outdoor run as well.
Oh.
But he goes into the lounge and sleeps on the carpet in the evenings. Spends the night in the lounge.
Fantastic. Sounds like he's got a great life. Right. Okay. So, now I understand that you're a founder of UComply. What made you set up the business in 2012?
My background, as you mentioned, I was in recruitment for 20 plus years, and I had my own business supplying staff into the NHS, which was a heavily compliant area. And I came across some technology that just did validation for ID documents, but they went as far as say document pass fail. And I thought we could do something better than that for the UK market and incorporate the Home Office guidance.
Fantastic.
So we were the first to do that. I think some of our competitors are trying to emulate what we do now, but we were the very first to do that.
So could you expand on what UComply do now then and the types of clients that you work with?
We have a couple of solutions. One works with border standard passport scanners and another one works with a mobile app on mobile phones, which actually the first part of the process is that they will authenticate or validate the documents presented, ensure that you have the correct combination of documents from whatever country that candidate is from to work in the UK, and then take you through the Home Office questions and give you a report, PDF report, to say that person has the right to work in the UK or not, as the case may be.
So what are the potential implications for not complying with these requirements?
All employers have to do right to work checks before they engage a worker, before they first start working. And historically, it's been a manual process where you sign, date and stamp the copy to say that you've seen it and file it in a manual system. That can be fraught with difficulties in terms of not capturing the correct combination of documents and not following procedure. And as a result of that, that can lead to fines. You can be fined up to £20,000 for employing an illegal worker. You can also get fined for not having a procedure, the relevant procedure in place. So a lot of people now are looking at and using technology to help them streamline their process and stay compliant.
Right. So that fine that you just mentioned, £20,000, is that for the company or is that per employee?
That's per illegal worker found. And if it's a first offence, they will reduce that. However, if you're a repeat offender, they won't reduce it at all. And it's a bit like having a parking ticket. They issue it and you have to pay it unless you appeal. It costs a lot to actually appeal. You need to get an immigration barrister to defend you, which is expensive.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be quite expensive. Plus, I mean, I would imagine if you had, say, 20 or 50 illegal workers, then the fines could be quite significant, couldn't they?
They would indeed, and they could actually, cause businesses to fold. So it is a risk. But it's also the reputational damage as well. If the Home Office do name and shame employers where they find illegal working. And there's an implication there for people who are supplying temporary workers into end user clients. A lot of our clients are recruitment businesses, but also, if you're an employer, say a construction employer, and you've got subcontractors working on your site under your control, and they're, supplied and they're not, they don't have the right to work in the UK. The reputational risk actually usually lies with the end employer, although they might not be, initially culpable. They're the ones that get named and shamed, unfortunately, when it hits the media. So
the software helps to manage all of this then, basically, to prevent those sorts of issues from occurring.
Absolutely. And it gives a uniform process across the organisation. So particularly if you've got a disparate workforce and you have line managers doing the recruitment out in the field, you can see centrally everything that's being done, by whom and when. So you have a full audit trail. And you know that everyone is following exactly the same process.
So talking about processes, what was the main driver for implementing a quality and information security system?
With our collective backgrounds in information technology, we needed to demonstrate to our clients and prospects that we as a business are in complete control and can prove it. That was the main thing for us. Okay. And yes, because obviously with having a number of processes in place already, I mean, did that help? I mean, you mentioned about having certain processes. Did that help you when you started with implementing the standards? It did. I mean, as they weren't formal. What implementing the standards has done is helped us formalize and document everything that we do, make us more aware of why we do things. So it's very useful for us to go down this route of the accreditations for us as an organisation.
Yeah, I'm sure there were some challenges along the way. There usually are with any business that's looking at implementing an ISO standard. What would you say was the most challenging aspect of the project for you?
Getting the documentation, I think, really. Working through everything we needed to do, looking at the risks. I think that's the main challenge for us, really, and looking at how we could mitigate any risks.
Yes, yeah. Because I guess, on a day-to-day basis, it's business as usual, isn't it? You don't always get the opportunity to take a step back to see how things could potentially be done to reduce risk or in a better way. So in terms of those challenges, I mean, how did you find that you overcame them?
Well, we had great assistance from the team at Blackmores, I have to say, steering us in the right direction and taking, we also did quite a bit with a wonderful encyclopedia called Google. So we've got a lot of help there too. But I have to say, Blackmores as a consultancy really helped us steer us through on the correct path and get in place the correct documentation for us and correct procedures for us.
Good stuff. And what would you say was the main benefit then from if we look at the quality management side of things, what would you say was the main benefit from a quality management perspective for the firm?
I think knowing that what we were doing or already were doing was compliant and being able to share controls more effectively with our staff, because it involves the whole company, not just, the directors or the senior managers. It involves everybody as part of the team. All working together. Great.
Okay, lovely. And what would you say was the main benefit from an information security perspective? Because obviously 27001 covers quite a lot of areas, doesn't it? Not just the IT security side of things, but also physical security, personnel security. What would you say was the main benefit from implementing 27001?
I'd say it's very, very similar to quality management control, but with a focus on identifying risks and mitigating those risks understanding processes. We now look at it from a different perspective. We look at any new development we're doing, any software and processes we look at in a different light. I mean, prior to implementing the standards, we were looking at things like what it costs, is it beneficial? Now we look at things in a different way and we say, okay, what's the risk? Do we need it? And cost is probably the last consideration.
Okay, that's interesting. And so what would you say that you've learned from that experience? I know that you were working with one of our consultants, Steve Mason, on the project. Mm-hmm. What would you say? Obviously, you're extremely knowledgeable about the compliance side of things, and obviously with this being a compliance standard as well. Is there anything that you felt that you took away from that experience that was beneficial for the company?
I think looking at things from a different perspective, as I outlined before, was probably the main thing for us, really. I think we've always been compliant and had high standards, but it helped us formalize everything, think about things from a different point of view. So now, whenever we do anything, we think about it from an ISO standard point of view as well, which we probably weren't conscious of beforehand.
Okay. And what if you had a top tip for somebody who was thinking about embarking on a project like this? What top tip would you give to that person about the implementation of a quality or information security system?
I think the main thing would be to understand what it is that you do as an organization and be able to articulate it in a way that other people will understand and embrace any changes required to implement ISO standards.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Well, that's lovely. I think I'd just like to also ask if you were to gift a book to somebody, if you've got a favourite book, it could be non-fiction, fiction, it doesn't really matter. If you could gift a book to somebody, what would it be and why?
That's a really interesting question.
Bit random, I know.
I did read, I'm quite an avid reader and I like psychological thrillers, and I've got some favourite authors like Patricia Cornwell and Tammy Hogue. However, I read a book many years ago now that made a big impact on me, called Fingerprints of the Gods by Graham Hancock.
Okay.
And that sort of like looks at ancient civilizations and correlations between ancient civilizations and possibly where humankind, intelligent humans, came from originally. And it sort of like flouts all common religions. So that was quite an interesting book, and it gives an alternative perspective.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating.
Of humans, really. I recommend it. That's one book I would really recommend. It stood out for me. I probably read that about 20 years ago.
Oh, right. Okay. Is it one of those books that, once you've read it, you keep it on your shelf and you keep meaning to read it again when you get time? But yeah, that's one I've made a note of that.
It's a bit of a tome, Mel, I have to say.
Is it? Okay.
It's a rather big book. But right. Yes, it's one it takes a while to read.
But one worth reading, though, you reckon?
I think so, yes. I think there's a lot in it for everybody, really. That makes it challenges your thinking.
Good. Excellent. So, well, just finally, what is your favourite quote that you'd like to leave listeners with today?
I think probably live and let live. Respect people for who they are, their differences and their similarities. It takes all sorts to make a world. So that's probably what I would like to leave with.
Brilliant. Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for sharing your experience with us today, Kim-Marie. I'm sure all our listeners will take away some useful information on that. And in particular, the right to work as well, that you mentioned about earlier on, and about some of the implications of not complying with it. Kim-Marie, I think you were going to be providing a free download on right to work. Is that right?
Yeah, we do have a download, the 7 vital steps to right to work.
Brilliant. Okay. So we'll have information on how to get that download if you get in contact with us. Obviously, you can get in contact with us on www.blackmoresuk.com. And Kim-Marie, your website is?
It's www.UComply, that's the letter UComply.co.uk. And it's also available on our website.
Brilliant. Okay, then that's lovely. Okay, so I'd just like to leave listeners with a bit of a reminder about subscribing for the podcast show so that you don't miss any. We've got some more really good interviews coming up. and also some series on how to implement ISO standards, in particular ISO 27001 and ISO 9001. And as this is still a fledgling show, the ISO show would really benefit from a review. So if you did like the show, please do leave a review for us. And that's all for now. So it's goodbye from me, and I look forward to catching you on the next ISO show.